In this video, I'm gonna give you 5 practical tips that you can use to eat healthy while being on a budget. And I'm also going to show you why the excuse "I can't eat healthy because I'm broke" need not apply. So stay tuned. Now, before we get into the actual tips, I'd like to talk a little bit about why eating healthy is associated with being expensive, because I think this is important to mention. Now, if you'd prefer to skip straight to the tips, then timestamps will be provided in the description. So a big part of the problem, I think, is how the image of a nutritious diet or a healthy lifestyle is portrayed to an outsider. You know, you have all the vlogs and the people on social media showing all those delicious, exotic, and probably pretty expensive dishes, you know, with the hashtags underneath. You also have the corporations and the media advertising must-have superfoods, supplements, exotic herbs, etc., etc. Now, I'm not saying that those things aren't healthy or that they don't provide any health benefits. I'm just saying that you don't need them necessarily in order to eat healthy. Because when you get down to it, eating healthy isn't really all that expensive or all that complicated. I mean, it can be, but it doesn't have to be. It's all about having an adequate intake of macronutrients, micronutrients, and other important compounds like antioxidants, avoiding potentially harmful substances like trans fats, saturated fats, simple sugars, and dangerous additives. And so today I'm gonna share with you 5 tips to help you eat healthy on a budget. And another quick note before we begin, I just like to point out that eating healthy and eating for some sort of physical goal like aesthetics or sport performance aren't one and the same, and they mostly differ in protein intake. People and athletes that are exercising rigorously need a higher protein intake, especially those that are exercising with weights. And protein can significantly impact the cost of a diet, since protein sources are usually the most expensive part of a diet. But we're not talking about that today. Today we're talking about how you can eat healthy without breaking the bank. So let's begin. Tip number 1 is to buy fruits and vegetables that are local and in season. Fruits and vegetables will have to be staples in your diet if you want to be healthy. There's really no debate about that. Now, fruits and vegetables aren't terribly expensive to begin with, but there are ways to minimize their cost. And the first way is by buying fruits and vegetables that are produced in your local area. You know, having to store and then transfer produce from one area to another obviously costs money. And naturally, this means that the prices are going to be increased to make up for that increase in cost. Buying local produce means that you can save up on all those extra fees. And as a bonus, it also helps your local economy. And as another bonus, it also probably means that the fruit is going to be more fresh and probably even a little bit higher in nutrients. Now, the second way that ties into the first way is to buy fruits and vegetables that are in season. And in the 21st century, it might sound crazy to restrict yourself on certain fruits and vegetables because it's not their season, but you know, humans have been doing it for thousands of years, so I think you can pull it off. Buying produce that is not on season probably means that there is much less supply, and thus the cost is gonna be higher. It also likely means that the produce was imported from somewhere that it could grow more effectively. And as we mentioned a few moments ago, imported produce costs more. So if you want to save money, buy local and in season. And this tip can be applied to other things as well, like fish or meats. Tip number 2 is to eat more legumes as your main meals. And we're talking about beans, lentils, peas, etc., etc. So in Western cultures, unless you're a vegan, you're probably not consuming legumes all that much. And if you are eating legumes, it's probably in the form of side dishes or appetizers. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. However, legumes can be an excellent choice as a main meal. Now, in my opinion, legumes are some of the best foods for overall health. They are high in complex carbohydrates, fiber, minerals like potassium and magnesium, and are a good source of protein, iron, and even antioxidants. And last but not least, they are super cheap. Now, the price is obviously going to vary depending on your location, but I think we can all agree that a good serving of lentils is going to cost much less than a good serving of chicken breast. Now, if you need more protein and you're not satisfied with eating legumes as a standalone meal, then you can pair them well with canned tuna or honestly any sort of fish, although this is obviously going to increase the price tag. Tip number 3 is to simply cut back on eating out. Now I'm cheating in this one a little bit because it's not that much a tip as it is an analysis. So first of all, a lot of people seem to be under the impression that eating out on some cheap joint is going to be cheaper than getting the ingredients themselves and cooking the meal, because most people are more comfortable with the idea of giving 10 bucks at every meal rather than 200 bucks on a grocery haul. But if you actually do the math, what you'll probably find is that gathering the ingredients yourself and cooking the meal yourself is usually going to be cheaper than eating out, even if the food that you're making is higher quality. Now, obviously, this is going to depend on what you're comparing. For example, if you're comparing a Big Mac meal from McDonald's with salmon fillets accompanied by organic quinoa and exotic vegetables, then yeah, McDonald's is probably gonna be the cheaper option. But especially if you stick to the other tips in this video, you'll find that eating at home is usually going to be both cheaper and healthier. And that's not even mentioning the healthier options at restaurants. Now, I think it's great that restaurants nowadays provide healthier and cleaner options. That said, a lot of them have capitalized on the hype of, eating healthy and eating clean, and so they inflate their prices so much for their so-called healthy meals or superfoods, which a lot of the time are simply chicken breast, quinoa, and a serving of veggies. That will be $20, please. Tip number 4 is to swap refined grains for whole grains. Grains have been staples in our diet ever since agricultural life began. Carbohydrates are our body's preferred source of fuel, even though I know that a lot of you might disagree on that. Grains are relatively easy to grow and harvest, they're very cheap, and they're also calorically dense, meaning that they provide a lot of calories with less volume. And even today, most people's diets are heavily reliant on grains. You can easily enrich your diet with fiber, vitamins, and minerals by simply swapping all those refined grains that you're eating with whole grains. Whole grains are much more micronutriently dense than refined grains. They are richer in fiber, B vitamins, magnesium, and other minerals. And the best thing is that whole grains usually cost around the same price as refined grains. And if they do cost more, then the difference is usually pretty small. And finally, tip number 5 is to buy your chicken in whole instead of simply chicken breast. Chicken is usually a staple to most people that are trying to eat clean. Now, it is true that the breast can be considered as the healthiest part of a chicken since it's the lowest in saturated fats and calories. But remember that we measure the nutritional value and the healthiness level of a diet as a whole, not every individual part. If your diet is relatively low in saturated fats and you're on a reasonable calorie intake level, then there's no reason to consider other parts of the chicken like thighs and drumsticks to be unhealthy. Buying whole chicken is usually much cheaper than buying the individual parts separately, and it's also going to add some variety to your chicken consuming routine. Just make sure to take out the skin to avoid excess saturated fats and calories. So, these were 5 of my personal tips on how to eat healthy without breaking the bank. And make sure to share your own tips down in the comments. If you like the video, then like ratings are very appreciated, and feel free to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more content just like this. Thank you for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.